Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Oldboy. This film came out in 2003. It was directed by the acclaimed South Korean director, Park Chan-Wook. He's a director that I unfortunately was not familiar with really. I mean, I'd heard of him, but I had never really seen any of his movies until about a few months ago, but I really admire his work from what I've seen. I think that he uses the medium of film maybe to the best of its abilities, which is actually kind of rare when you think about it. But to me, I mean, there's thought put in every moment, every shot, every symbol, so that it all works together in a way where it feels almost like a visual poem. He's very rooted in raw emotion and how often social constraints can hinder vulnerability and truth, and that is definitely a very important theme in the movie Oldboy. It's a cautionary tale, it's a revenge fantasy, it's similar to maybe the works of Shakespeare, and it is definitely inspired by Oedipus Rex for sure. So it's a very universal work that a lot of people can relate to, but as I said, I mean, it's a very special film because it uses the medium of filmmaking in, to me, the best way possible by using it to look inwards at the human condition. And it uses the manipulative qualities of film in a way that feels earned because it actually serves a purpose. I look at all kinds of really good films like Mulholland Drive, one of my favorite movies of all time, The Forbidden Room. Those are movies that use the medium of film to deconstruct the very idea of art. And then you've got a movie like Tree of Life that examines life and evolution, and Oldboy examines human emotion and the way that it can contort and change depending on certain circumstances. The director is a very visual storyteller, and in this case he's telling the story of revenge in a sort of through a neo-noir lens. And it also has a very Japanese look. It looks straight out of a manga, each shot. And, you know, this is actually based on a Japanese manga to begin with. The actors in the film are very exaggerated in the way they perform. So the characters look almost like caricatures, anime characters. So they're, as I said, very exaggerated. They're very bizarre, quirky, at times awkward. Yet they're able to contrast that with a very kind of raw and real power. And all of these qualities to the movie and to Park Chan-wook's work in general is very important, especially in this one, because when you rewatch it, you see how many of the details are there in the visuals and how it's always giving you little clues. The musical score, the sound effects, etc., all feed into the morals of the film. The movie is about a character named Odesu who gets really drunk on his daughter's 4th birthday, and he is kidnapped by an unknown person and is imprisoned for an unknown reason, at least unknown to him. And he is kept in this prison for 15 years. At that point, after 15 years, he is released for, again, an unknown reason. And he is obviously quite damaged and traumatized by the entire experience, as anyone would be. He's no longer the man that he once was. He has no life, he has no friends, no family, nothing really. There's a line that he says at the beginning in a voiceover that to me really kind of encapsulates everything, the film's core themes, and it's something along the lines of, if they had told me I would have been imprisoned for 15 years, would that have made it easier to endure? Very key point there, because the idea of what we know and what we don't know based on a certain circumstance can completely change the way that we view said circumstance. You can feel all kinds of things in the moment, but when time passes and you put it in a certain context, it distorts, it changes, and that is part of what is so complicated about humans in general. I mean, how would things have changed if he had known that he would have been imprisoned for 15 years? You could say that about things you learn about him later in the movie. We learn that the reason he was imprisoned is because he was spreading rumors about a certain person. But how would things have been different if he had understood the weight of the issue, if he had known what he was spreading, the information that he was spreading was going to be so hurtful to somebody? Empathy is just a huge part of humanity, whether you like it or not. As much as you try to differentiate yourself, distance yourself, it's just part of who we are. And we're going to place certain emphasis, certain dramatic emphasis on certain things compared to certain people. Everyone has their own emotional baggage based on their own experiences. And because of that, oftentimes those emotions can evolve into something sinister. And in the case of the protagonist and the antagonist, Lee Woo-jin, it's this whole thing about revenge. And again, it just depends on the person. You know, to Dae-soo, he sees what he did as maybe not right, but he doesn't think that he deserved to be in prison for 15 years over it. And Lee Woo-jin feels very differently because that incident that happened when he was spreading the rumors about him and his sister, it completely changed his life. So even the most seemingly insignificant actions can act as a ripple effect for someone else. And the inherent power in that is that really, Dae-soo and Lee Woo-jin are no different from each other really at all. Both are very haunted by their emotions. Both men cannot escape their pasts, and these pasts have molded them into something that they maybe didn't expect to be, these very kind of cold-blooded people. All they see is revenge, and they're obsessed with it, and they let that, in a sense, really mar every other decision that they make. And the actor who played Lee Woo-jin, I think he's amazing. I think he gave maybe the best performance, at least for me, in the movie. I think he just did everything in a way that just felt so genuine. And he has this kind of youthful, kind of baby-faced quality that at first seems kind of smarmy and duplicitous, very villainesque. But the more you grow to learn about him, the more that he reveals himself to be such a sad person who is so hurt by the world, just like anybody else is. And he slowly reveals that in a way that is just heartbreaking. So he's able to play beat for beat all kinds of different facets in a way that is very, very convincing. And if you didn't feel for that character, then it would really kind of ruin the whole intent of the story. And it's not just his performance, it's you know, both performances, but it's also, again, the way that the film is directed, the way that the director uses certain visual metaphors like windows and mirrors, certain colors, the way certain music themes play to connect both characters at certain times. It helps you make the sympathetic connections between the both of them. And they do it in a way that is, it's not necessarily subtle, but it's not until the big reveal at the end that it sort of all falls into place, and all of what they were doing to set you up for that totally makes sense. And that is how you build a film and make it layered, you make it complex, because at the end, when again, you've got the big reveal, it makes you feel extremely conflicted because all of these things have really built you to believe a certain thing. And the ending, I mean, it's really fucked up in the same way as I said, a Shakespeare tragedy is. Whenever I watch a movie, I'm always paying attention to what kind of information the filmmakers are withholding from the audience and what kind of information they're actually giving to us, what we know versus what the characters know. Choosing to tell somebody that there is a bomb under the table before it goes off compared to if you're just watching a scene and you don't know that the bomb is under the table is going to obviously give you very different experience watching it. But here, the fact that the audience does not know initially what is brewing and why Lee Woo-jin is doing what he's doing is very crucial. And it really is pretty brilliant, you know, because the film builds and manipulates you in such a way that we fall for everything. You know, we look at Dae-soo and we just root for him because he is our protagonist. We root for the love story between him and Mi-do, who's the woman, the sushi chef that he meets early on in the film. We want them both to succeed, but only because we know part of the story. We don't see the big picture until the end. And when we do know the whole picture, we feel very wrong inside because we too were fooled as well. And that's what really the movie is asking. It's asking, should we change how we originally felt without that information? And that's the gray area that this movie handles in a way that to me has such visceral power from all angles. It's the idea that Dae-soo states at the beginning and also at the very end of the film. He's saying, yeah, I might be a beast, but don't I have the right to live? Don't I have the right to my own feelings because they are genuine in the moment and they are human? And I think the ending is maybe one of the most powerful parts of the film, which is saying a lot, because after all of the carnage and after all is revealed to Dae-soo, he asks a hypnotist who we meet earlier in the film to erase his memory from all of this, all the grotesque events, so that he can be happier. But she also warns him that there might be some complications. But when she completes the hypnosis, he and Mi-do are reunited and they hug. And the very last shot is of him smiling, but he smiles, the smile slowly turns into this very broken, sad, almost grimace of pain. And on a surface level, that scene is asking the question to the audience, did the hypnosis work? And I mean, that's a valid question, I think, obviously, but I don't really like to focus on that because I think it goes a lot deeper. I mean, it's very likely that it didn't work, but maybe it did. But what I like to look at is the whole concept of no matter what decisions we make that we think will make us happy, all have their cons. All good things come to an end, and love, happiness, elation all end up being bittersweet as time goes by. Demons mar the good, as unfortunate as that may be, and it's a cruel awakening, and I think that this film again handles that brutal truth in a way that just blends all those elements together so harmoniously. It speaks volumes about who we are in a very brutal, painful, sometimes weird, sometimes funny, and sometimes gruesome way. It hits all the facets and to me in a way transcends the medium of film, and that is why I think this is a great movie. And that is my review. Thank you all for listening. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, the link is below. You can also like my Facebook page and the link below that. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like to. Catch you next time.